Let me make sure, okay, got everything set there. Great way to start. Expect the unexpected, as they used to say. Virtual hug. Good morning. A British psychologist, Haggerty A. Hatfield, did some experiments on the power of belief back almost 100 years ago. He wanted to look at the power of suggestion, and he was also working with hypnosis. So he got a group of test subjects, and he got one of these pinch dynamometer, so it just tests the strength of your grip. And he started out with a baseline, just checked what everybody's, strength was, so to speak, and he found that the average was 101 pounds of pressure on this pinch dynamometer. Then he hypnotized each of the people who had done the baseline and talked with them about how weak they were, and just, they could barely, just get up and walk, et cetera, and then brought them out of the hypnosis and had them grip this thing, and the average was 28 pounds, down from 101. But then he put them under hypnosis again and did the opposite, talked about how strong they were, and they're stronger beyond their imagination, blah, 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 blah. And then they did the pinch test again. This time the average was 142 pounds. So what happened? Did Dr. Hadfield actually add strength or subtract strength from people? No. And if I were to ask you now, how much weight can you lift? You might have a number in mind, and what if I told you you had to lift double of that? There's a story that was reported in Time magazine in 1960. I know it's been quoted by a lot of people over the years. But there was a woman who was convalescing from an illness, and she was sitting on her front porch, and her high school-age son was underneath his car in front of the house. He had jacked it up and was working underneath it, and suddenly he wrenched something, and the car just fell on him, and he cried out. And the woman just suddenly got a surge of adrenaline, and she went running to the car and lifted it up, and he was able to crawl out. And then she dropped it. And they took both him and her to the hospital, and she was checking out, no damage to any of her muscles. And I got a kick out of this quote because the doctor, says, "I only wonder how far she would have been able to lift that car if she wasn't so weak." Everybody's heard stories like that and understand that our minds have incredible power. Our beliefs, our faith can cause things to happen that we couldn't have even dreamed of earlier. Suddenly we're facing this joint challenge, the confluence of events. We've got a world pandemic. We've got supply shortages. We've got job layoffs. We've got the general word recession. There's a human race consciousness, which is, or some people call it the collective consciousness, where our thoughts all come together, and it affects each one of us. However, we have the opportunity to decide, do we want to participate in this recession? Do we want to give in to the fear? Well, you might scoff, but that's why I chose to do this 4-part series on the Sundays in April. On how to live a recession-proof life. This is the third week. If you missed the first two, they're saved and recorded right there on that Facebook page where you're watching now. And I did have somebody ask if there's a book they could read that covers these topics, and yes, I actually based this on the book Spiritual Economics. The book Spiritual Economics by Eric Butterworth. If you can find it on shop.unityonline.org or at all of your favorite booksellers. So let me go back to the question, have you decided to participate in the recession? And let's broaden it a little bit. Say the word recession is actually a metaphor for anything you notice might be a lack or a blockage in your flow. So that could be our health, occupation, relationships, spiritual growth, money. And I want to talk about faith and also the difference between faith and belief. Now, if I were to ask, what's your faith? How would you answer? Most people approach that question as if I need to tell people what denomination I am. From this approach, a package of custom-made convictions is suddenly given to you, and it's like, oh, okay, I believe all these things. But I don't know about you, it hasn't worked that way for me. It's like, okay, I'll be within a denomination, but there are certain things I don't believe in, other things that I do. And then, of course, we have conversions. Say someone's getting married to somebody of another denomination, they have to take a class with the clergy and convert to that particular religion. So Jesus actually used the phrase, to him that believes it shall be done. And a lot of people thought that talks about religion. In most Christian denominations, you'll ask, do you believe in God? And they'll say, well, yes, I believe in God. But then I ask, well, what does that mean? How do you believe in God? What is God? Where is God? And how is it relevant to my life right now in the 21st century? Unity has a book, a glossary called Revealing Word, which kind of lays down our basic beliefs about things. But so I looked up the word belief and the word faith. The word belief on page 23 says, belief is an inner acceptance of an idea as true. Belief is closely related to faith. Belief functions both consciously and subconsciously. Many false individual and human race beliefs are very active below the conscious level. And then we turn to page 67, and it says faith. Faith is the perceiving power of the mind linked with the power to shape spiritual substance. Spiritual substance or divine substance. Those of you who listened to the April 5th lesson, that's what I really focused on that day. What is substance? And how can we draw it and make it manifest the things that we want in our life? Going on with the explanation of faith in Revealing Word, it says, faith is more than a mere belief. It's a divine idea. And let me just pause here. Remember, a divine idea is we open our mind to the divine mind, we get the divine download, and we just need to do two things. One, first be willing to believe that divine ideas exist, and then when they come to us and intuitively we know we need to do it, we need to believe and be willing to express that. So are you willing to believe, and are you willing to express the divine idea? Back to the definition. Faith is the very substance of that which is believed. Faith is the very substance of that which is believed. It works by combining it with the divine idea of love. So thoughts of condemnation, enmity, and resistance must be released, and divine love must be declared. Then faith will work unhindered. It's a magnetic power that draws to us our heart's desire. By drawing on and forming invisible spiritual substance, faith is a deep inner knowing that which is sought is already ours for the taking. As Paul wrote in the letter to the Hebrews, now faith is the assurance of things hoped for. So it concludes by saying the development of the faith faculty within us is a key to spiritual realization. According to your faith, may it be done unto you, is in the Gospel of Matthew, 9th chapter. So that's the definition from the Revealing Word. And faith, of course, is one of our 12 powers. Each of us has been given these 12 spiritual gifts, which were symbolized by the 12 apostles. So occasionally I'll hear someone say, well, I don't have faith, or I'm not a believing person. Well, that's impossible. You've got faith. It's there within you. Everyone has faith. Just what or who are you placing your faith in? Fear is a faith. Something negative is about to happen. You start to use your faith in that aspect of fear. Worry, insecurity, these are ways that we can use our faith. It's not something that we need to attain or find somewhere because it's already within us. And it's felt the strongest right there in the middle of our head. So what we need to do is just adjust our expression of faith. Where are we placing our faith? As the Apostle Paul wrote, faith is the free gift of God, which all persons have, but only a few use the right way. So, consider that we're all spiritual beings having a human experience. And then consider that there is no separation between ourselves and God. That means that we are part of this God energy and that we can express it in the world. We're like a cell in the body of Christ, as I say often. Each of the cells in our own body has a special function it does, which is very different from other cells in our body. But there is a folly in placing your faith in a God that is off somewhere else, like up on a cloud or on the other side of the world for some reason. Faith is already within us. So it's important for us to go beyond believing in God to believing from God, recognizing we're a part of that creative energy that we call God. There's the omnipotent, the omniscient, and the omnipresent, all-powerful, everywhere present, and all-knowing, like I say, the divine mind of God. God is the ground of our being, the essence in which we live and move and have our being. God is life, all substance, all intelligence. And all of that is present in you and me. Now, there are some overzealous teachers of the New Thought philosophies who talk about the magic of believing, the miracle works of faith. This is misleading, actually, because there's nothing magic to it at all. What we are doing is fulfilling spiritual law. And they are as absolute as the physical laws of our physical world. We open ourselves to channeling this faith into the physical world. Well, consider scientists. Okay, scientists, do they believe in the physical laws of the world? I guess you could say that, but I notice that most scientists know the physical laws of the world, and then they channel their ideas. And of course, they channel their ideas most effectively, just as I described, opening their mind to the divine mind, waiting for that divine guidance to come through and say, here's how you use the laws of physical science. And then scientists are working on everything, of course, from, rockets, the rocket scientists, all the way down the spectrum to the scientists that are working on either a cure or a treatment for the coronavirus or a vaccine for the coronavirus. These are the ways, in fact, Einstein talked about how it was his intuition that was much more important than his thinking and feeling process. God does not do things for us. God does things through us and from within out into the world. We can channel the power, the presence, the ideas. The challenge is that we fall asleep to that idea. We get to the point where suddenly we snap out of it and we're like, oh, yeah, my mind was just kind of off there in negativity. Let me give you an example. Many of you have used a rheostat, which is more commonly known as a dimmer switch. You'll be in a room, and like we've got some dimmer switches here in the sanctuary at Unity of Tampa, and you turn down the switch and the lights come down. Well, what's happening is there is this flow of electricity, and then the dimmer switch causes a resistance to that electricity, causing the electricity harder and harder for the electricity to come through, and that's what dims the lights. So when we turn our faith up to the highest, we start letting go of all of this negative thinking, we can project this invisible energy force that we call, faith, and it works through, like I said before, combining it with love and the word for today in the divine word, understanding the divine guidance that we're getting. Noticing that there is an allness of spirit that goes forth and lovingly affects the various areas of our life, health, occupation, relationships, spiritual growth, or money. Now, another way we can apply our faith is to recognize that we're all spiritual beings having a human experience. And in that case, we have to recognize that is true for everyone else we know. So by using our faith from a consciousness of God, we can use our faith and our belief by seeing it in other people. And what happens is we can be a midwife for their own spiritual growth or new realization in their lives. We can help release the potential within them. But I caution you, don't let your ego get involved in this. I remember one of the teachers at Unity Seminary would talk about, isn't it interesting that everybody, if they, talks about how wonderful it would be for them to just wave their hand and heal someone. It's like, well, yeah, because the ego starts to get involved, and while it's a very compassionate and nice thing to do, we can just simply pray and allow that to happen. But yeah, you start getting into this attitude of like, well, I'm going to straighten this person out. It's like, no. And you ask the age-old question, am I part of the problem or am I the solution to the problem? Am I part of the solution or am I part of the problem? The key for us is to not set it right, but to see it rightly. To be willing to look at a person and see that divine aspect in themselves. To see that, yeah, they've got their challenges and they've had their experiences in their life, and that's what they're filtering their current experience through. If they had a traumatic experience earlier in their life, they're going to be very tense. I remember this one woman who had been in a bad car accident, so she was very nervous whenever she went out and drove in her car. So what's your baggage along the way? Faith believes in this allness of God that is always present. We look for the good in any situation. Like I say so many times, it's like, when the organic material has hit the rotary oscillator, can we stand there and say, okay, show me the good in this, because I'm having difficulty seeing it at this very moment. So we express the good. We direct the energy of creativity through our faith. As Jesus said, I am in this world, but not of it. Don't get caught up in the physical appearances around us. Instead, know the spiritual truth. I'm going to ask Duncan to put up the takeaways from this week. I posted them on Facebook, on our Unity of Tampa Facebook page. Number one, belief is an inner acceptance of an idea as true. Faith is the perceiving power of mind linked with the power to shape spiritual substance. Remember that faith is a divine idea that's inside all of us. We believe that divine ideas exist, and we're willing to express the divine ideas that come to us. Remember that everyone always has faith. The question to ask is, well, who or what am I placing my faith in? Open ourselves to the channeling faith, open ourselves to channel the faith into the world. Recognize that God works through each of us, and we can use that faith and power to make this world a better place. In other words, turn up the dimmer switch. Don't choke off the flow. Apply faith to your perceptions of others, and then visualize others expressing their full potential. Now, to put it all in a nutshell, we can believe in anything. But the most effective place to put our faith is in God. Then we are connected with that divine mind, and it flows into the world and allows us to see the divine in everything. Psychologists, let me start. When we're faced with this multi-tiered event of fear that we are right now, ask, where have I placed my faith? And what do I believe is going to happen? Because whatever we focus on will expand. Psychologists have known for many years that the economy is only as strong as the attitudes and the feelings of the people who are a part of that economy. So whatever happens in the world around you, what matters is what's happening in you, what's happening within you and through you. Express faith. Act on faith as a perception that sees the good, the best, the highest, and the most potential in everything. And each of us will have an experience of freedom, fullness, and prosperity. Our closing video is a 3-minute video from Steve Hartman of the CBS Evening News about a gentleman who had the special gift of being able to see the best in everybody.
When 48-year-old Lamont Thomas became an empty nester, it was the end of a parenting legend. Back in 2001, this divorced father of two took on a foster kid named Michael Perez.
He was a good young man, and I just hated to see him in the system.
Eventually, Lamont adopted Michael, who now works as a nurse.
I don't believe that I would be the person that I am today without the morals that he instilled in me, the family, the extended family that I have now.
How extended is that family?
I tell you, if I had enough fingers and toes to count.
Turns out Michael was just the beginning.
That's Marcus.
Over the next 15 years,
Jamie.
Lamont fostered more than 30 kids here in Buffalo, New York,
Herman.
and adopted 5 of them.
JJ.
And again, he did this all on his own and with all of his heart.
Every child that I have had, it was my goal to make a difference in their lives.
You fell in love with these kids, huh?
Yeah. Proud of them.
And you retired from fostering.
I did.
Go fishing?
Oh yeah, did plenty of fishing.
Trips?
Love all of that.
Of course, we wouldn't be here today if that was still the case.
Yes, sir.
It really was a shocker. I didn't expect for him to restart and to do it all over again. It's just amazing.
Today, Lamont is back in the game in a big way. Not long ago, he took on 5 siblings, all under the age of 6.
Major, are you eating books?
Lamont, who works as a caterer, says he did have other plans for these years,
I didn't think it was this.
but those plans have now been shattered with mayhem.
When was the last time you went fishing?
It wasn't this summer.
Papa! Papa!
Yes.
Lamont decided to foster all 5 after he found out they were going to be permanently split up.
Yes.
And to guarantee they stay a family,
Okay.
last
Good
month,
job.
he adopted them.
Very good.
You are hereby adopted.
I had to help them. They deserve to be raised together.
Fortunately, Lamont has a great support system through church and friends, and he's not opposed to adding a wife to the mix, should such a saint exist.
Don't lick my mirror, please.
But if not, he's also fine going it alone, for as long as it takes to make the difference.
Have you calculated when the last one's going to be out of high school?
We got a lot of years to go. But it's all right. It's all good.
Lamont Thomas, definitely all good. Steve Hartman, on the road, in Buffalo.